Michael, I wanted to ask you about the changing landscape of the demand side of the DSPs. And, there's been a lot of consolidation, as you know, there's a lot of growth. The nature of what they do is changing. Tell us sort of your thoughts about the changing landscape of the video DSPs and how, the local part of it or how unique and the opportunity of DSPs like Simplify, addressing a more regional or localized business set.
I don't have as good feeling to tell you on the local side with regards to DSPs, but if anything, I would say the market, at least on the national level, has for the most part consolidated around Trade Desk. I mean, really the two behemoths in the space are basically Trade Desk and Google with their DV 360 offering. Simplify to me is one of the more unusual players in the space, and that I think they've actually continued to do well. I actually feel like most of the other players I could think of in terms of the private DSPs, like I think their businesses have actually not performed particularly well over the last couple of years. I think in a lot of cases, they don't have the same level of CTV exposure that either Trade Desk or Simplified does. And I think it's just increasingly just more competitive business to try to knock one of these guys out from. It's not that so much that there's crazy cost barriers to change, but if you're using Simplify, Google DV360, Trade Desk, and all of your data is basically been tracked historically, it's like for like incomparable. If you change providers, it actually, it can cause some agita within marketing organizations. So to me, it's not like a wow. Is there such a huge overt economic cost to switching? No, but it's sort of like if it's working, I don't necessarily know what would lead me to go ahead and change one provider to another.
Michael, I wanted to ask you more broadly about, what you cover a lot of elements of our industry. What's sort of been sort of exciting, interesting? Certainly, there's been a lot of acceleration in advanced television over the last couple of years, and
Mhm.
we're reporting that there's been a lot of acceleration as a result of consumer changes and during COVID. What's been going on from your perspective, kind of on a macro level?
I mean, I think sort of with any crisis and prior recessions, this is obviously a very unique one. I think there's just a propensity for secular trends that are basically already happening to have a tendency to basically have gotten accelerated. So a couple that I would basically highlight is, we don't overtly cover the television companies. We're not particularly positive given some of the things that we're just talking about with regards to live sports. And, a lot of those businesses like Viacom, Disney, they see really a tremendous amount of negative leverage to the extent you basically see this, this fragmentation happen, and audiences get smaller. On the positive side, I think it actually further bolsters the bull case around connected TV and that being purchased programmatically, right? Because if I can't sit there and say, let's pretend we're in a world where COVID doesn't exist, Thursday nights would always be a big night for movie studios launching a movie, right? So you'd pay a big to be on YouTube, you'd pay a big to be on the big primetime networks because your Friday numbers, opening weekend numbers were super, super important. Like now that and some of the media companies are like, yeah, it's happening more within the apps. Maybe there's some leakage happening to Hulu TV, to YouTube TV. Any way you look at it, if you're a big marketer and you want to basically go ahead and say, I want to buy a whole bunch of audience, particular time of the day, particular demographic, like it's just getting harder and harder to aggregate those audiences on linear television. So, where let's say a benefit that I would talk about with something like CTV is, let's say somebody's putting a $50,000 buy in the Q4 timeframe. to work and they want to basically allocate just that to CTV, it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. There may be audience that they want to get and capture on either the Scripps networks or Discovery networks, but am I going to literally go through the agita of doing an insertion order for $1,500? Like, it's just not worth anybody's time and energy. And that to me is one of the things that the DSPs have shown a really great amount of resilience around, which is I can just turn the knob up in a hurry, I can turn the knob down in a hurry. So, you can see it through the Trade Desk numbers, sort of their non-CTV business got hit pretty hard, probably some of the hardest within internet, because I saw as COVID was hitting and people were slamming on the brakes, on the positive and negative column, real easy to say, I'm just turning the knob down on what I'm doing through, programmatic. And, as we've actually started to have recovery happen over the course of, we troughed, I believe, in early 2Q, continued recovery, I suspect we'll see as the companies begin to report, into 3Q, was also one of the tactics that we saw called out as one of the first things that people would put back on. So, that's a big trend. And we're watching that closely. We think the upfront will look different going into 21. And conceivably, to my earlier point of, the longer things are the way they are, if something wasn't working before, i.e. the upfront, like I can't envision what the bull case is that you're going to make to a that you basically are going to make to your CFO if you're the CMO of like, hey, we're going to go and just make a $200 million commitment to ESPN. I have no idea where, that's probably a bad example. Call it more like CBS. Like, now I'm making commitments just to the CBS network. I'm not even just buying individual shows, which was the whole premise of why the upfront existed. And two, there's been all kinds of under delivery. So with a lot of economic uncertainty still swirling, COVID cases upticking, like CFO is probably like, let me think about that for a second. No, actually, I don't think we're actually going to do that to the degree that we did before. And, to the earlier point also with sports, I'm scratching my head. We'll have a piece out on CTV and TV early next week out of our pivotal advertising insights. But, my suspicion is people live for all these months without live sports, and, OTT services have obviously all exploded. I mean, Disney Plus was already off to a pretty stellar start, but I bet a lot of that was just free subs that they got through their Verizon promotion. But that obviously has had phenomenal growth. Netflix has had phenomenal growth. Like, just feels to me like to me and my colleague Jeff Wolodarczyk, who covers the cable companies, the live sports to me is the last bastion of why people have a video subscription to cable. Like, and I don't even think the cable companies care. Like, they make almost, they make 10 to 15% EBITDA margins from their video business. They make 80% margins on data. Like, we're probably at a point where they're like, we honestly don't even care anymore. We're willing to drop channels. Like, we're willing to sort of look past it. So, if you already had some question marks about the upfront, I mean, I don't know how well things are going to look for 21. Aside from just hopefully the economy does continue to recover and, comps will certainly be easy. But I think something is structurally changed in TV. And I don't know, let's say we don't have a typical upfront in 21. I don't know how you're going to go to market in 22 and be like, let's go back to doing business practices that really hadn't been working for years.